Welcome. There we go. Welcome. Good evening. As you just was announced, this meeting is being recorded, and the purpose for that is we will then post it on our website. So for those that could not make it, they can easily access it and see whatever happened today in the conversation, and the valuable information that's going to be imparted to us this evening. My name is Pat Miller. I'm the president of PPRTA. We have, in our continued efforts to keep all of you, our members, informed as to various topics, including but not limited to how taxpayer dollars are being spent in Provincetown. We have two presentations on that score this evening. And before we get to that, I first want to make an announcement, which is, as you may recall, the Provincetown Film Society last year asked us to provide housing donations in the form of housing for the film festival. They were having trouble finding housing for a number of their staff and volunteers. You guys came through. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that they would have had a lot of difficulty with the film festival had you folks not come forward by providing housing for some of their volunteers. We now find ourselves with the Provincetown Film Theater asking a similar ask here of this association. And particularly they'll be doing performances from May through December and are looking for various forms of housing, either for a week, maybe for a stage manager, maybe for an actor, depending on the situation from May through December. Anyway, I will be sending out a newsletter in the next couple of days, and you can see exactly what the ask is. The theater has indicated that they would provide cleaning fees if that's of import to you. And also they will give us a lot of publicity, PPRTA, if we come through. So that's also important to us. So anyway, be looking for a newsletter, and please help out the Provincetown Theater with their housing request. Okay, now tonight, two presentations. We have first the Provincetown Building Committee, which is tasked with designing, getting money, et cetera, with the new police station project. And we have two presenters on that score, Paul Kelly and Jeff Mulliken. And so we'll hold that thought for a second. And we also have William Mullen from the Provincetown Conservation Trust, and their mission is to protect open spaces around Provincetown, and we'll address that. In particular, as you probably know, April 4th is town meeting. April 4th is town meeting. And there are many articles that will be voted on by the voters, yay or nay, on a variety of things. And both our presentations tonight will particularly focus on some of those articles and what the positions are of the respective speakers concerning those articles. So let's start first, and let's get right to it, with our two presenters from the Provincetown Building Committee, Paul Kelly, who's the vice chair, is that right? Vice chair, right? Of the building committee, and Jeff Mulliken, who's the architect and member of the building committee. What I'll ask, they'll speak for about 20 minutes. I believe they have a few slides that they'd like to show us. And I'll ask that if you have questions, just put them in the chat, and I'll try to weave them in to the conversation. Or after there are 20 minutes, we could just stop. And if you have other questions, we can do it that way as well. But probably easier if you put it in the chat just to move this along smoothly. As you probably know, the police station and the building of it, a new police station, has been a pretty well debated topic for the last few years. And indeed, there's an article specifically about it that'll be voted on yay or nay by the voters today. So I guess the first place, if you gentlemen could start with just explaining to us the building committee and how it came to be and exactly what its mission is. Take it away.
You want to take that?
Sure. Paul's going to talk a little bit about the history of the process that we've what has been going through for many, many years. The building committee is an appointed volunteer committee whose mission is to research, develop, and present to the town a new police station to replace the existing station. So the mission of the tasks of the committee have been over the years to study the needs of the police department, or make happen studies of the needs, hire an architect. I'm not the architect, by the way. I'm an architect, but I'm not the architect of the police station, just a point of clarification. And as well as presenting the design and the cost of the station to to the voters, also to to have occur the bidding to general contractors in the eventual award of the contract. There is a project manager, which is a consultant that's been hired by the town that is managing all of the logistics of that. But we collect and disseminate information and guide the project, and provide all of the information primarily back to town manager and the select board, and eventually to the town at town meeting. I think that's broad general view of what we do. If you look at the description of what we're supposed to be doing, it's a lot smaller than that, but it wouldn't happen without this group. So we've taken on, especially this year, this community engagement campaign, of which this meeting is part of that. So we appreciate being asked to be here. And Paul is going to run through some
I'm going to run
interesting.
through some of the background things that we don't want to forget, and it's in printed form, so I'll try and be quick. First of all, I'm glad to be here. I was part of this organization when it first started, and I remember thinking it was. I remember Steve. I don't see your picture, Steve, but so anyways, it's nice to be back here. I've watched PPRTA for a long time. And as I said, we moved down here permanently 8 or 12 years ago. So it's at that time I started getting involved in things like this. Involved is a word that we're very familiar with right now. We have weekly meetings on this subject. Anyway, give me a few moments to read this. That we'll have questions and answers afterwards. But so we thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about Article 6 on the town meeting warrant, which requests $8.5 million supplemental funding for the new police station, and which has the unanimous support of the Select Board and the Finance Committee. This is the culmination of efforts that began in 2001, when the then Chief of Police sent a letter to the town manager, Select Board, and Finance Committee listing the operational deficiencies and hazards of the current police station. They are the exact same ones we talked about 21 years later. He attached to that letter a 5-year capital improvement plan to accompany funding a new police station by 2007. But it wasn't until July 2009 that the town engaged the Center for Public Safety for an assessment, which lists 24 operational deficiencies and hazard conditions at the existing station. Back in 2012, Sheila McGinnis, our building committee chair, was opposed to the 17,000 square foot police station. After years studying the issue, she went from a dissenting citizen to the strong supporter she is today. It's been a long, long time. I think she said it was 21 years that there's been some involvement at some level. Seeing the current police station's cramped, degraded, and dangerous conditions in which we ask our public safety employees to work every day, since then, she and this committee has worked to make sure our community and our visitors get a safe, modern, purpose-built public safety facility that meets the codes and criteria needed of the police department at the lowest possible cost. So let me invite you to visit the police station open house if you haven't. There's a tour on Saturday, April 2nd from 1 to 3, and see for yourselves. The proposed building is amongst the smallest. The proposed building is amongst the smallest facilities on Cape Cod, even though the Provincetown attracts among the highest number of visitors compared to other Cape Cod towns. Everything in it in the new building is standard for modern police stations. Right-sized spaces meets the department needs. There are no extras such as a gym, no sauna, no community room. Its finishes are durable, low maintenance, painted drywall, ceramic tile, carpet, and acoustical tile. That's one thing the building committee was very demanding of the process was that we're not going to make a Taj Mahal out of it. It is bare bones. During town meeting in 2019 and over the past 2 years, we have heard from members of the public who had concerns about the new police station location and the design and the cost. Because the location has been fixed since the vote at 2017 town meeting, which cited the new police station at 16 Jerome Smith Road, we couldn't change that. Because the police department's space programming needs had not changed since 2019 town meeting, we couldn't change that either. But because the new police station design is not favored by some voters, our team, the staff, architects, project manager, and the building committee presented in a community poll conducted last October a second, more traditional, less contemporary exterior design to be vetted by the public alongside the 2019 design. To our surprise, the 2019 design received an 81% favorable response. That is the design in front of the town meeting next Monday. It will be no surprise to you all that since we brought this project to town meeting in 2019, the COVID factor, inflation, and supply issues have increased costs by 30 to 35%. Early in 2022, two independent estimators projected construction cost of $16.6 million. As taxpayers ourselves, we wish it were less. But just for comparison purposes, consider last December that the voters of the town of Dennis approved $14,006.6 million to fund a new fire station that has a similar square footage to what we're talking about, but had fewer regulatory requirements to fulfill. I assure you, our team has repeatedly deliberated on the police department's needs, on design, on cost, and over the years, we've pared it down its size by 3,000 square feet to its current size of 13,864 square feet. We are confident that the current design is the most cost-effective and meets all of the needs of the department in the smallest, most practical layout. One last thing. People ask, can the town meeting support the new police station and housing initiatives? The answer is yes. Holding these priorities, the select board is united in working with the town committees, the town manager, and the staff to address these two most important issues facing our town through solutions such as increased revenue sources, favorable zoning bylaws, and redevelopment of the current municipal buildings for housing. Moving the police department into a new station will free up the current site for that consideration. Now, Jeff will take you through the slides and take questions and answers afterwards.
I think, Pat, I can just hit share screen on my
Yes,
Zoom
I think that's what you do, and then
and hit share. Okay. How's that? Everyone seeing that? Are we good?
I think it looks good.
Good, we're good.
Good, thank you. And thanks again. By the way, I just want to say I am a former member of this organization as well. About a dozen years ago, we purchased property in town, and we were part-timers. And I'm happy to say that we are now full-timers, my partner and I, after about, I think we bought property, the property we are in now in 2014, and we're finally here full-time. So I'm very sensitive to PPRTA and its mission, and appreciate everything that you're doing. Very fine organization. As Paul mentioned, the current police station has been inadequate for a long time. It's a former funeral home. It was lightly renovated in the 80s to become a police station. It's never really been adequate, but over the years, it's the needs of the police department have extended beyond what this building can do. And also it's a deteriorated facility that has a host of code violations, mechanical and electrical problems, and it floods. The image on the right-hand side of the screen, that is the basement, the garage doors that lead into the basement. That's also the sally port in which detainees are brought into the building. Animals that are picked up in town that are brought in for protection have to go through that. And as you can see, that's pretty difficult to do when there's standing water in that space. Also, I encourage anyone who's in town who would like to take a tour through the station to come on Saturday, as Paul has mentioned. It's pretty eye-opening. This, again, more images of the flooding conditions. What's not shown here is, in these images, is the fact that paper files are stored in the attic. The electric room that has all the infrastructure that supports the very vital communications equipment is also where the sewer main drains out of the building. So there's water in, water pipes in the electric room. It's just been, just an accumulation of makeshift and deterioration, makeshift renovations or fixes and deterioration. So this is a view of the new station from Jerome Smith Road. I'm going to show you a site plan in a minute, but it's a contemporary design. As Paul mentioned, this is the building design that was proposed back in 2019. And last year we came back with we responded to some comments about it not being Cape Coddy enough and proposed some changes to this, which turns out they'd be more expensive. But much to our surprise, we had both versions on the town website. We got number 1,800 votes, I believe. 81% favored this design. So we stayed with this. It's clad in cedar, board and batten, and shingles. Cedar is one of the reasons we see cedar all over Cape Cod is it's a very long-lasting wood, and it has the added feature of it weathers to a nice soft gray over time. So it will be very, very suitable for the town. This is another view from Shank Painter Road.
I'm sorry, Jeff,
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you just, for everybody, so we're all on the same page, just say where Jerome Smith is, Jerome Smith Road, where exactly is that?
Okay, let me advance to the site plan. So this on the left, this is Shank Painter Road as it intersects with Route 6. And some people may know that Shank Painter Road is going to be reconstructed by 2025 completely to be more pedestrian and bike friendly. It intersects at a future roundabout that's going to occur on Route 6. And this is the site. And Jerome Smith runs along the bottom of the plan here. And the dog park, yeah, thanks, Paul. The dog park is right over there. So if you know where the dog park is, we're right across the street from the dog park.
And the VFW.
And the VFW site for the new housing is right about where my cursor is there, somewhere right in here. This parking area is currently where the skate park is, and you might know the extension of this parking lot is where you see the RVs parked. This will become, this section of the parking lot will become an area for a secure area to park police vehicles, which we don't have now, and an area for visitor parking for the police station. Again, we don't have that now. And this entrance off of Jerome Smith goes into the building, and this becomes the Sally Port, which is the secure way that detainees are brought into the building. Pat, does that help in your mind locate where this is?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, so this is the first floor plan. And you see the entrance that at the red triangle, that is closest to Jerome Smith Road. That's the main entrance. There's a public lobby with a small secure interview room, which also functions as a safe room. Someone who comes in distress has a private place to meet with an officer out of the view of the public. The dispatch area is its suite unto itself because the dispatch works 24/7, and the dispatchers should not be leaving that suite during their shifts. It's very important that that's a constantly monitored situation. So it has its own break room and its own toilet, so that space can function completely on its own. Records, IT room. Back here, this is something that we don't have now, which is a roll call room. We don't have any place in the current building for the entire police force to meet for training, for general meetings or whatever. So for the first time ever, we now have a room that can house the entire staff, the entire force. This has a dual purpose. It's when we have events in town that require a multi-agency response, like the National Seashore Park Service, state police, weather emergencies, public works. This can also serve as a multi-agency command center to, things like a big storm, Carnival, 4th of July, wherever we have big events on multi-agency response might be needed. The locker room suite, believe it or not, right now, we don't have a women's locker room. We have men's lockers, a small number of them. But if you can imagine, the force comes to work in their civilian clothes and they keep their professional gear here. They need a place to change and a place to leave their professional work gear in a safe place. So that's another space we don't have in the current building. And this whole suite in pink, this is the detention area with the drive-through Sally Port. It's now a secure way of bringing detainees into the space. And then all of the layout of this area is mandated by the Massachusetts State Department of Public Health. It enables, which is required, the safe detaining of male and female in separate spaces with their own passageway. The state law requires that there can be no communication between detainees. So this, or visual communication. So this enables that to happen. And then a holding area for people who are in some distress, but it's not suitable to put them in a cell. This functions for that. This all, we have 5 cells now. We have 5 cells in the proposed building. But the conditions in which those cells exist in the current building are just, I guess I could say, appalling. Animal control for this safe detaining of animals that have been picked up off the street. This interesting here is there's a door to the outside directly from animal control. It's going to go to a kennel run outdoors. Again, we don't have that today. Second floor, to the left in yellow is the chief and lieutenant and the administrative area, a meeting room. This is where this part of the force resides. The other sort of in orange are different groups and different individuals, the court liaison, cybercrime room, detectives and sergeants. All of these individuals have to do work usually at the beginning and at the end of their shift at a computer. They don't have individual spaces now to do that with this layout. Finally, they'll be able to actually do their mandated paperwork in a appropriate location. You can see the sergeants have their own desks, the detectives. There's a lot of paperwork that goes with public safety. And the sort of big, large space in the in blue, under Massachusetts law, we are required to keep certain original documents in perpetuity. We haven't caught up with the digital age yet, and it's very important that we have access to all of that material. Whenever a case comes up, the case can be thrown out if you don't have the original documents, including handwritten notes by officers, hair samples, fiber samples, evidence. A lot of this now is either in the attic of the building I showed you, the current police station, or in some metal storage containers that are in the parking lot in back of the station. This is an interesting comparison of the square footage of the building we're proposing, 13,684 square feet, comparing it to other communities on the Cape, and with also a comparison of the population of these other communities. And as you can see, we are pretty efficient in terms of our use of space in comparison to the population that this department supports and protects. We know we can have 60,000 people in town in the summertime. We can have 100,000 people for a carnival parade. And so what we're proposing is totally appropriate and in line with what other communities are doing. And just to, if you have any other questions that are that occur to you at any point, feel free to go to our website, newpolicestation.com. There's a lot more information than Paul and I have just delivered to you, as well as opportunity for you to pose questions, which we answer. So that, I'm going to stop the slides, and we are very happy to answer any more questions or give you any more information that you'd like to have.
Well, I'll start us off just for clarification. You said it's the article now is for an 8.5 million supplement of funding.
Yes.
So what's the grand total then?
So here's the thing. In 2019, in 2017, 8.6 million was appropriated for the whole project in 2017, which approved. In 2019, bids came back, and it was in the actual cost then was in the neighborhood of 12 million. So the select board and the committee requested the additional funding to bring it up to 12 million to support it, the project. And when I say 12 million and 8.6 previously in 2017, that, just to be clear, that's not just construction, that's total project cost, which includes the architect's fees, the project manager's fees, and then all the furniture and technology and equipment that goes into the building for police operations. And just as an example, the equipment that is currently in the dispatch area of the current station is so old that, and there are no replacement parts being manufactured for that. So the chief actually goes out on eBay and looks for parts to support that. So we have a whole new dispatch system. All of this communication equipment and technology is part of that project cost. So what we're asking now, when we come before town meeting next Monday, is an additional 8.6 million to bring us up to a total of 16 million. And that will be 16 million is the total project cost. We've had estimates for the construction that are around 13 or so. The project's out to bid currently, And so we're looking to raise the appropriation from the original 8.6 up to 16.1, I believe it is. So does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think
yeah.
Karen, did you want to ask a question?
I was just curious to see if there was any consideration about solar panels or any kind of environmental efficiency.
Excellent question. The building is prepped for solar panels on the roof, and the reason it's not going on initially is because we don't want to put that component into the general contractor's bid, because the town has had great success in working with the, I believe the organization is Cape and Islands Solar Compact, to get that part of the installation for free. So, and so what we have is the infrastructure, the building's ready for solar, but the town, once we have this underway, we'll work with the solar compact to get that installation in for free. The building is all electric except for the generator. So there's no fossil fuels involved, and it's also built to current code standards. The Massachusetts Energy Code requires a very highly insulated building. And then there's this thing called the Stretch Energy Code, which certain communities have adopted, including Provincetown, which ups the ante by 20%, so that we're 20% greater than the code itself. This will be by far the most energy efficient building in the town, for sure, once it's built.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have a question.
Sure.
The original 8.6 million figure of what was that, 2017 or something?
Yes.
Did that not include things like the dispatch technology and so forth? That was just the building?
No, that was the total project cost at the time. So included the construction and the technology. Soft costs, we call it. There's the hard costs of construction. Soft costs are the design professionals, the project manager, the various other ancillary costs that are, have to do with professional services and whatever, as well as furniture, electronic equipment, technology, etc. At the time, this was long before I was involved, it was said that the estimate at the 2017 town meeting was flawed in that it didn't include a factor for building on the Outer Cape, and it just was not a very good estimate. So when it came back in 2019 and it was much greater, it reflected the true cost at the time. Unfortunately, it didn't pass. It lost by 8 votes. And you might have noticed that between 2019 and today, 3 years later, we have experienced not only the impact on construction costs that COVID had, inflation, supply chain issues, etc. That is why we are where we're at today.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in here and just say for 1 second that we do have William Mullen is waiting to make remarks.
Sure.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we just sort of pivot a little bit? If you have other questions concerning the police station, hold those for a second. We'll have William do his presentation, and then we can just combine our questions. You folks don't mind hanging out while yeah, okay.
Not at all.
So let me just switch over then, and my job here is just keep us on task and time. So that's what I'm doing. William Mullen, thank you for joining us. Is the president of the Provincetown Conservation Trust, and a fellow part-timer, I believe. Am I right on that?
No, actually, I am full-time.
Oh, you're
Um,
full-time now. Okay.
I
all
am
right,
full-time.
All right.
I think I'm
And,
sharing my desktop. Hold on.
yeah. And William's going to discuss Articles 18, 19, and 28 and 29.
Yeah.
And I would just say that that brings into play, I believe, and I want to speak for you, the tension between the idea of protecting open spaces and the desire to provide housing.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
So go ahead, take it away. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you very much. Can everyone see, it was a little tricky. Can everyone see the slide that says Provincetown Conservation Trust?
Yes.
Great, awesome. So for those of you who are not familiar with the organization, the Conservation Trust has been active since 1980 in Provincetown. I am the president, and I've been the president since the fall of 2019. You may have known Celine Gandolfo, who was the president before me. And basically today, I just want to talk to you about what we do, what our mission is, why we feel important to conserve land, especially in Provincetown, and then get into some of the heart of the articles we support and one article that we oppose. We support most of the articles in the town, but there is one this year that we do oppose. So I'll get going. So who are we? We're not the town. We're not the Conservation Commission. A lot of people confuse us for that. The Provincetown Conservation Trust is a private, nonprofit 501c3 founded in 1980. We're all volunteer. There are some conservation trusts on Cape Cod that have full-time staffs. We're not there yet. But we're all volunteer, and we're dedicated to preserving the woods, wetlands, heathlands, dunes, and forests of Provincetown, especially in the face of increasing development and housing needs. And what do we do besides just conserve land, and how do we do it? Well, we work with individual landowners to save not just any piece of land. We actually take consideration for ecologically important parcels. Really, that includes land that abuts wetlands, lush woodlands, ones that are near already conserved areas where a lot of flora and fauna flourish. And we want to kind of expand that area or really save it. That's critical to these species. We partner with the town of Provincetown all the time. So we identify and help identify those important parcels to be saved. Right now, we're a very, very small organization with a very low budget. So when a parcel comes up for sale, we don't have millions of dollars to actually spend on it. But we partner with the town to use land bank funds, in which we still have in the town, that is dedicated to be spent on only open space and conservation land. So that's how we partner with the town. We also partner in another way. We hold the conservation restrictions on a lot of the town-owned conservation properties, such as Schenck Painter, Claps Pond, Nicky's Park, and some of the Old Colony Nature Pathway. We also manage and try to recruit land stewards. These are individuals on their own time walking through these parcels and making sure there's no abuse that's happening. A lot of times they'll record migratory birds, other animals, and we put it into our database. And another large part of our organization and our mission is educating residents and visitors through programming, getting people out there. You'd be surprised how many visitors come to Provincetown and they go to the boat slip, they go to the theme weeks, and they don't understand. And they'll go to the National Seashore, but they've never been to Claps Pond, Schenck Painter Pond, the Old Colony Nature Pathway, Nicky's Park. These are really special areas. We're trying to get the word out. So why conserve land? A lot of arguments that we hear is when people don't know our mission and don't know how critical it is, hey, we have the National Seashore. Isn't that enough? Unfortunately, it's not. It's a great piece of land, don't get me wrong. But most of it is dry pine and beautiful dunes, right? There are like beach forests, there's some wetlands, but the real important part lies in the boundary, and that's what we call Provincetown's Greenway. And this is right along here. It actually extends all the way up to the entrance of Herring Cove. And this is where really all the birds nest and they stay while they're migrating. That's because they have access to a lot of the rich wetlands here. I mentioned Champaigner and Claps Pond. There's a lot of small wetlands here right near Route 6 that are very important to them. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is it's been proven that conserving land actually helps combat climate change. We're already seeing the effects. A couple of years ago, we had that massive flood here in Provincetown. Every year, I'm sure some of you have seen after a big rainstorm on Court Street, you'll see that it's flooded. Well, that's because that road and those buildings are sitting actually on a wetland. So by conserving the land, we have an area where the water can go so we can combat some of the effects of climate change. Some of you are probably familiar with the species extinction. Since 1970, 30% of all bird species in North America have gone extinct. And that is because of urban sprawl. And why it's important to Provincetown is Provincetown actually has the most variety of migratory birds on Cape Cod. Believe it or not, the most variety recorded by birders, and Cape Cod as a whole in the Northeast is an incredible habitat for migratory birds. And another reason is we want to increase the ecotourism in town, right? We have a draw with theme weeks and others, but you'd be amazed how many birders come to Provincetown specifically to sight birds and come to our conservation lands to do just that. So getting into the town articles that we support, there are many town articles. I don't know if we're going to get through them all in one night, but anyway, if you do have a copy of the warrant or not, Article 18 is a really special article. It is one of the first times that the Open Space Committee and the town of Provincetown are partnering together for a parcel to purchase for affordable housing and conservation. This is a huge win, right? It tackles both of our problems, trying to conserve while trying to meet our demand for affordable housing, which we feel is very important. And I'm going to show you where that parcel is. If everyone can see the map here, this is Bradford Street. It's actually 288A, and it's this orange sliver right here. It's a very long parcel. The proposal is to build affordable housing where existing structures, or mostly existing structures, already are, and to conserve the back end here. Why that's really important is this is Old Colony Nature Pathway, and in this wetland here are white cedar swamps, and there's a trail called Fox Run Trail that runs through them. It's beautiful. White cedars are very rare. There's only a few places on the Cape. They're gorgeous to walk through. If you haven't gone there, look up Fox Run Trail and just go to our site and there's information on it. So our vision is to actually, in tandem with the affordable housing, have a trailhead outlet to Bradford Street. So nature lovers can actually go and access that beautiful white cedar swamp that way. So that is Article 18. I've actually listed it here. I can share this deck with you as well. So another article on the town meeting that we support is Article 28. And that has to do with spending money from the Land Bank Fund to demolish a fire damaged structure. So in our last May's town meeting, the voters supported purchase of a parcel of open space. And that parcel is right here. It's on Atkins Mayo Road. And unfortunately, a few years before that, a fire took down the building and caused the death of the owner of that parcel. It was really tragic. But the owner's son actually came to us first because nature was really, really important to the owner. And so we worked with the town and we have purchased this parcel here, which is surrounded by wetlands. So what the cost here would do is tear down that unsafe structure, clear out that property. That property, just go back a couple of slides, as you can see this photo, has a lot of, he was a very eccentric artist and craftsman. So there's a lot of stuff here that needs to be removed to restore that property to its natural source and clear out the wetlands. So that's what we're asking for. Article 28 is $120,000 for that. The other article we support, and this is a big one, is Article 29. This is 63R Howland Street, otherwise known as Site Y. And this is a town-owned parcel. Here's Route 6. This is Howland Street. Right here where my cursor is right in the beginning of the Old Colony Nature Pathway. This is about 3 acres of land here. And why it's really important to support conserving this property is every few years, another idea for a building comes to this parcel. A few years ago, before Seashore Point was built, it was proposed to be here. And then just recently in the housing study, they had proposed Site Y for housing. Well, the Open Space Committee commissioned a study, an environmental study, and it found that this really was not conducive to any kind of building. In fact, 75% of it is undevelopable, not to mention that it's surrounded by wetlands. And the study, which I believe you can get on the town's website, had cited a variety of flora and fauna not found actually anywhere within Provincetown. So it's a very special piece of property. What the best part about this is there's no cost to town taxpayers. There's no cost in using any of the land bank funds. It's actually just the town agreeing to conserve this and applying a conservation restriction on it. And here is the town warrant for 29, and it explains, it's a very large warrant there. It explains the study done and some of the rare species found on that parcel. So here's one town meeting article we actually do oppose. And that is the proposal to consider Route 6, the eastbound lane for housing. It is very ambiguous, the article is. And it is proposing that from Conwell Street all the way on the eastbound lane, all the way to Herring Cove, consider for housing. That to us really threatens a lot of the ecosystem there along that route. We're not against housing. We just feel that leaching fields and housing is going to really impact the wetlands that are nearby. Shank Painter especially, Shank Painter Pond abuts that eastern route of Route 6. Also, in terms of discussing how the vision of housing and how that's going to work along that eastbound, a lot of town members do believe that clear cutting of the median of Route 6 would be needed. And we're just against that. In a time of climate change and species extinction, where that seems to us moving backwards, and a loss of habitat for many, many animals. A lot of animals use the Route 6 side areas as a transgress between Shank Painter and Claps Pond and vice versa. By building housing there, you're starting to block that. And last but not least, the last bullet I have here, there's other housing alternatives that exist. We have to think outside of the box. I think a start is, rethinking the Veterans Community Center. And also reusing the firehouses that aren't used right now. These are really important ideas. But how about let's start thinking about using some of the municipal parking lots, where in the first floor can be parking. We don't lose that revenue from the town. And then above it can be affordable housing. We have to start thinking about that instead of using our greenway. This is just a sample of every of the proposed area from Conwell, just slightly to where the police station is going to be built here. But between those two areas, we have a wetland here. We have actually another wetland. We have the soccer field, which I know a lot of people don't think is used, but many people use it. And we have a growing population, and we have younger people and we have more families moving in. It's a valuable asset. And so, replacing it with housing is not, in our view, not a smart move. We have another wetland, we have woods here, all used by various animals and flora and fauna. Here's the town warrant of 19. I just like to say, spread the word. whether you're a voter or not, no on 19. So I had mentioned, going from what articles we support to the ones we don't oppose, or the one we oppose, to some of our programming. We have an Earth Day tree planting coming up on the 22nd on Earth Day. And we also have we hold a brews and actually it's called Birds and Beers, or Birds and Brews, not Brews and Beards, at Provincetown Brewing Company. And it's a talk with Peter Trull about spring bird migration. Those are all can be found on our website. So if you can check us out at the ProvincetownConservationTrust.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, follow us. We will accept your donation. That's how we actually sustain, and we're able to maybe purchase some surveys that landowners need for consideration to save land and keep our programming alive. And that's it.
Well, thank you very much. So now I'm going to just open it up for questions with respect to the presentations by our two presentations by you gentlemen. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentations. And I actually had a question just to get us started. When we're talking about affordable housing, and I guess this is really to William, is this affordable housing, or is this housing for workers in the high season?
That's a great question. So one of the problems we had around Article 19 is it didn't specify if it was even affordable housing. It said for housing. So we were against the way the article's written, in addition to some of the other items. For Article 18, that is for affordable housing, for not workforce housing. It's affordable housing for residents, much like they're developing in the old VFW.
And William, if you wouldn't mind taking down the slide. Yeah.
So certainly, sorry about that.
We can all see each other. There we
Yeah,
go. We can all look at our faces and be like, oh,
Yeah.
I wish I had better lighting, whatever. I have a question, just another question, which is with respect to the comments made by Jeff and Paul. You said, you mentioned saunas. I've been in a lot of police precincts. I've never seen a sauna police precinct before. I don't know if you were kidding around or whatever, but so you're just saying, though, I guess your point was it's pretty bare bones is where you are.
I think that's really, we're trying to make a point that, it is functional space, and there's not anything in here that could be seen as luxurious, superfluous, or out of the basic needs of a working police force. So we would also say there are no gold-plated fixtures or massage chairs in the offices and things like that. It was just sort of trying to make a point.
It snuck by. I have no idea where that came from.
but we really, the point is, the spaces are functional and based on a lot of study about the needs of a modern police force.
Question on
two
other
quick
topics.
questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Two quick questions back on the police station. One is, assuming this is approved next week, what's the time frame estimation for sort of moving forward? And ideally, when would we anticipate having a completed facility?
Well, it's what would happen with the yes vote is we are out to bid right now. That process is ongoing. So conceivably, we would award the construction bid this spring or summer, and then we need to allow for at least 18 to 20 months. That's a very generous time frame to build it, and then another 1 to 2 months to move the department in and to get all the equipment up and running and tested and make sure everything's operational. So, we're really looking at 2 years from now, perhaps, or less, for it to open. sounds like a long time frame. Of course, the general contractors has the opportunity to move faster, and we would encourage that. But this is just an estimate of the timeframe that we need to
Okay.
build it. Typically,
Great.
something like this and this price range and this complexity would be, 18 months of construction.
Thank you. And thanks for the link to the timeline. I hadn't seen that before. The last question was just around the current site, and are there plans for disposition of that site or reuse by the town?
It will not, Alex Morse and the select board are adamant that we're not going to let this parcel go. It obviously, once we move the department out of there, that building will have to come down, and there'll be some mediation work done on that site about the flooding, but it will be studied for probably for housing, and it may be workforce or it may be affordable. So it's an important parcel to hold on to.
Other questions?
Yes, I have two brief questions pertaining to the police station. I noticed on the first floor plan, you have two unisex bathrooms that are roughly the same size, but on the second floor, you designate one for women, one for men. Why not just have them all unisex, since they're only, one toilet per unit? Is there some requirement that it has to be offered in that manner? I just feel like, why would you want people to get backed up if they don't have to be?
Well, I think in actual practice, they will all be seen as unisex. There are certain, the number of toilet facilities in a building is mandated by the state building code. So the total aggregate number of toilets has to do with the population in the building. And it's probably, there's no difference in the gender of, in terms of how the toilet room is equipped. It's just meeting that number. I think what will happen is the signage on those rooms will be all unisex.
It just to my look, when I look at the number of rooms you have, the number of people in roll call, the number of toilets just looks light for business for a building this size. I'm sure you've looked at this. I also just want to remark that for a building of almost 14,000 square feet, I only see one tiny closet labeled for custodian. And I just wonder, where are you going to keep all the supplies and equipment to maintain this building, which is going to need ongoing, daily cleaning? Where's that equipment going to go?
There is adequate space for that. And I have to go back to sharing the screen to pull that plan up, but there is adequate space for the supplies that are expected to be needed for the building.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I'll say is that the plans have been originally vetted by the consultants that were engaged to build the needs assessment initially, and then completely and thoroughly reviewed by the department.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have one. With regard to the money that's being requested, is it anticipated that, for lack of a better word, all of this funding is going to be pay as you go, or can this money be bonded so that it's spent over so that taxpayers get the benefit of even though interest rates are going up, relatively low interest rates given past history, and that it's not all hitting at the same time?
Right. I think we're talking about 20-year bonds.
20 years.
Yeah. What the select board and the town manager have proposed is the full funding would be a 20-year bond for the entire project, not a pay-as-you-go. And as a matter of fact, we'd be unable to move forward with the construction without the guarantee of those available funds. And you're right in that the interest rates are good right now. And the sooner that we can get into that, the less expensive it will be in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
William, just a question for you. Where did the select board come down on these 4 articles that you just were discussing? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
The select board voted unanimously for all those articles. The Open Space Committee voted unanimously against Article 19. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions?
Yeah, I've got a quick comment and a question for Will.
Mhm.
Thanks for the work you guys do. As one of the trustees of the Hebert Charitable Foundation, we intend to keep giving you what support we can because we've
Oh,
seen the
thank
money,
you.
we've seen the money go to good use. So I just say that for everybody else's benefit. My question is for the about the police station. I've never been involved in building police stations, but I've been involved in building office complexes. And you're talking $13 million for the building and about 13,000 square feet, which if my math is right, that's $1,000 a square foot. I've been involved in building some office complexes that I would call gold-plated, and they weren't $1,000 a square foot. I'd appreciate your comments about that. What is it about this building that's mostly offices that costs $1,000 a square foot?
It's, well, if you rewind back to 2019, with the $12 million estimate, that was about 700 a square foot. That's comparable to what the other towns on the Cape spent. In the other communities that have built buildings comparable to this with this complexity. You know, and so that was 3 years ago. And we've had this extraordinary amount of construction cost inflation. So it's not an invented number. We've had 2 professional cost estimating firms give us that number. It's expensive to build in Provincetown. You know, we're way at the end of the delivery transit point. It's very expensive to house workers here. And so when you add up all of those costs, this is a very expensive place to build. We've gone, the committee has, over the years, gone through the building, which was originally about 3,000 square foot bigger, and skinnied it down to the minimum. It doesn't have a basement now, for instance. It's a slab on grade, so that saves some money. The materials are common materials, and we have to rely on what the professionals tell us this is going to cost. But it's comparable. If you took the buildings that were built in other communities of the same size, back when you could build it for $700, $750 a square foot, $750 a square foot, that $750 translates to $1,000 today. And
Wow.
unfortunately, I don't think that's coming down anytime soon.
Thanks for your answer. How many bidders are you going to have? How many bidders are bidding on the construction?
We were very encouraged. The process that we go through under the state public construction laws require us to do what is it? Pre-qualification. And so the pre-qualification for general contractor bidders was done starting last fall, and we had 11 bidders submit their qualifications, and we approved all 11. When it comes down to them actually putting the bid together, some of those will drop off for sure. But right now, the way the bidding is done today online, and we have filed sub bids, if you're familiar at all with public construction, filed sub bids, which are plumbing, electrical, and all those things, and then the general bids. And they all go through a online bidding process in which they submit to pull documents. And there were 120 total, with subcontractors and general contractors. So that took out plans. So that's a good response.
Yeah, thank you.
The construction is expensive, and you know, there's a lot of activity in construction right now, but I think contractors are looking at, well, what am I going to be doing for the next year and the next year? So I think we're in a good position.
Alan, did you have a question? Alan with 2 L's.
No, I just a comment that it's such a shame that it's $8 million more than it was when we started thinking about this. And but you know, appreciate your points. You know, it's expensive to build in the Cape. We're as far from a lot of material being brought in as we possibly could be. So, and I know the chief well, and I've been in that station, and it is a disaster there. It's really a shame. I've been in also been in the Wellfleet station, and they've done a nice job there. It's not a palace, but they've done a nice functional police station there. So I think our town and our police department deserve this.
Thank you.
So if by chance this loses by 8 votes again, what is the plan B? What happens? I mean, some of the things you mentioned to me sound like lawsuits waiting to happen at the existing station. So,
well, you know, I think the position of the committee is we don't want to test what would happen. We are not there are ratings and inspections that happen. I think the town is not going to be looked on very favorably when those inspections come up. I'm concerned. I think we all are concerned about injuries in the workplace or a detainee in the current situation, and what a good lawyer might do with a case against the town for inadequate facilities for detaining. So the plan B is, you know, from what comments that I've heard, for instance, Alex Morris make is, you know, we just have to come back again next year.
A different building committee.
Because we're tired. But you know, it won't be it won't be a smaller or less expensive building. It can't get any smaller, and it's not going to get less expensive. Every day we look at factors that we are all aware of, the factors that are going to influence costs going forward. It's a lot of money. I'm a taxpayer. I understand that. Paul's a taxpayer. All the committee members are taxpayers. We all understand that. It's just, if you've noticed the price of real estate here in town, we have to adjust to a new price level. And that's everything that goes into a building and what a building's value is. It's just, it is what it is. And I think we feel, I don't know, I went on, you know, I became a full-time resident about 2.5 years ago, and I got on the committee because I have a background in architecture and in construction and public construction, and bidding and that sort of thing. And, you know, the first thing I thought is, well, we got to make some cuts, make the building smaller. And I soon realized very early on that that was not possible, that this is the best deal out there right now.
There's archival storage in back in the parking lot of the existing police station. That is, this is archival storage that is supposed to be protected and kept, you know, and it's in a trailer. I don't know how long. I don't know what would happen if it failed again. I just don't know.
I saw a question about the cost impact. I think, are you asking the tax impact?
Well, if you're going to make your case that this is something the town needs, I think people want to think of it in a practical way. I think $1,000 per square foot, or the overall cost, these are huge numbers. But what people can appreciate is, okay, how much a year is this going to cost me as an individual taxpayer? Just on average. Now, I know there's huge differences in valuations of properties, but like on average, is there any concept of how many dollars per year per homeowner? Just any average?
Yeah, that's been studied, and the town manager's office has studied that. And if we get the 20-year bond, it looks like this works out to $29 per $100,000 of valuation, not your market value, but your actually tax valuation. So a $500,000 valuation,
400,
yeah, would be
400,
would be $140, $145 a year, I believe,
for 20 years.
for 20 years. In addition to the,
That's based on a 500 square foot condominium, let's say.
a $500,000
$500,000
valuation, the
assessed
tax
value.
assessed value, your assessment.
It
So
was $145
a year,
but it was only on that $500,000. So a house worth more is going to pay more.
Yeah.
That's kind of just a benchmark.
yeah, and that's the numbers that the town manager's office and the select board are working with. One thing I should say too is that there are, and there's a constant search for other sources of funding, grants, loans, etc. It's very difficult to apply for state or federal funds if the town hasn't authorized this to move forward. They won't look at it. So then, nobody wants it to be, more expensive than it could be. And everybody wants to grab any available contribution through the state or the feds that's possible. And town staff is aggressively pursuing any and all options for that. We're in a town now where property is easily selling at $1,000 a square foot. Residential real estate. It's a different animal when you get into a public building because it's sprinklered. It has a lot more safety features than a residence, and a lot more requirements for how the technology in the building is supported. So it seems like a huge number, believe me. Wish it was less.
Yeah.
But
And I want to be respectful of Mr. Jones. I just want to, say in response, I don't think that number is unreasonable when you meet it out over a 20-year period, but that doesn't capture all the costs of law enforcement. This is just for the building. There are a lot more costs involved with law enforcement. And I think what a lot of homeowners want to know is like, well, how does this meet out when it compares to other duties of local government? Education, sanitation, maintenance of the harbor, the town, all these things. Like, how much money are we spending on law enforcement compared to all these other things? And is it relatively flat, or are one of these things really out of line with everything else? That's kind of where I think people would want to have some insights.
mm-hmm. Well, I really can't speak towards the operational cost of the department itself. I do understand that our police force salaries are slightly below other communities. And one of the things, we were on an earlier meeting, Sheila McGinnis, our chair, and I, and that Alex Moore spoke of this, where, one of the problems that we have here is retention of staff in the police department. And they, people come here from first of all, it's hard to live here because it's so expensive. And to get people to stay is difficult, but it becomes sort of a training ground and then they move on to better jobs somewhere else. That's not good for the building and maintaining a functioning, comprehensive police department. I will say also that the cost of the policing here, from what I understand, and it's really not our purview on the committee, but it's comparably spread across equitably across other, public works, town staff, recreation, all of those other things. What's different about the police is, unlike public works, unlike town administration, the police department is given an inadequate facility, but the other departments have functional facilities with safe conditions.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for both those presentations. We're kind of at the limit. We said we go to 8:15, but we have a small crowd here. So if there are any more questions, one more chance. Any more questions? Any other thoughts for either of our presenters?
I have just a very minor question. The cells in the proposed station, I assume that detainees stay there for a relatively brief time, right? I mean, they're probably transferred to Barnstable after a while or something, to the county facility.
Well, I think it varies case by case. If they are detained and must make bail, that would have some influence on it. If they are transferred to a county facility or a larger facility somewhere else, I don't think the intention here, and again, we're speaking about police operations, that I don't, have a lot of knowledge of how that process works for someone who might be detained for a period of time. But this is what's required in any kind of detention facility in the state of Massachusetts.
Are you talking about like the number of cells, Carrie?
No, well, there are 5 cells, so it seems to me.
There are 5 now, and it was my understanding from the Department of Health that it's a requirement that it's 5.
Right. No, I'm just saying that it probably can be 5 even in high season, because it's not like they serve if they go to court and are sentenced, they probably don't serve their sentence in the police station.
Well, this is a detention area, but it's not like sending them to Barnstable County Jail for 6 months,
right,
or something like that. That's being incarcerated. This is detained. Like all police departments, you wouldn't expect to be held for 6 months in the Wellfleet jail or Eastham or something. Eventually, you would be transferred to a full facility.
Right.
Yeah, I think
I would
generally,
I would try to avoid it, Carrie, if you want to test it.
I think what happens is sometimes on a wild Friday night, they might fill up those cells before they can get them down to Orleans on Monday to the court.
Yeah, good point.
All right, very good. I think we've exhausted questions on this topic. Good luck to all of you with respect to your presentations. I assume you're going to speak with respect to the articles at town meeting, and good luck with that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these very informative presentations. Alan, I see you've got your hand up. Did you want one more?
Just the same thing. Just thanks to the presenters, and thanks to you, Pat, for pulling us together.
No problem. And please be on the lookout for more presentations like this from PPRTA. Again, part of our mission is to keep you all informed as to where your money's going, as well as other things going on around town. And also, please look for the newsletter where we can help out or the Provincetown Theater with some sort of housing. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good evening,
Thank you.
everyone. All right.
Thank you.
That